From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
Osama bin Laden would not have been captured and killed if it were not for the initial information we got from Khalid Sheikh Mohammed after he was waterboarded.
The death of Osama bin Laden has sparked a debate over whether torture of suspects held at places such as Guantanamo helped track down and kill the al-Qaeda leader. We'll go to Los Angeles to speak with Matthew Alexander, a former senior military interrogator involved with more than 1,300 interrogations in Iraq, leading to the capture of numerous al-Qaeda leaders. His latest book is called Kill or Capture: How a Special Operations Task Force Took Down a Notorious al-Qaeda Terrorist. Then it was 50 years ago today, May 4th, 1961, that the first Freedom Riders headed to the south of the United States.
There was a call for more Freedom Riders, and then ended up over 400 Freedom Riders came from all over the country, and they kind of filled up the jails in Mississippi. And finally, the signs in the bus stations and the train stations that said white only and colored only were taken down as a result of the Freedom Rides.
We'll speak with the award-winning filmmaker Stanley Nelson. His film Freedom Riders premieres on PBS American Experience on May 16th. And we'll speak with Jim Zwerg and Bernard Lafayette, two Freedom Riders who began their first trip 50 years ago. All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The Obama administration has acknowledged Osama bin Laden was unarmed when he was killed in a U.S. raid. The admission contradicts previous suggestions bin Laden had taken part in a firefight with U.S. troops and could heighten doubts over whether the U.S. intended to capture bin Laden alive. White House Press Secretary Jay Carney revealed the new details.
The information I have to you, first of all, I think resistance does not require a firearm, but the information I gave you is what I can tell you about it. I'm sure more details will be provided as they come available, and we are able to release them.
Did he have any weapon?
He was not armed, is what I understand to be true.
One of bin Laden's wives was wounded in the raid, but not killed, as previously reported. Both the wounded wife and a daughter of bin Laden, believed to be about 12 years old, are in Pakistani custody, along with 9 other children. The Obama administration says it's weighing whether to release photographs taken of bin Laden after he was killed, as well as photos of 3 other men killed in the raid, including bin Laden's son, his courier, and his courier's brother. The Navy SEAL team that carried out the raid also seized a cache of computer equipment and documents that U.S. officials say could provide a major boost to the fight against al-Qaeda. The raid, meanwhile, has inflamed tensions between the U.S. and Pakistani governments. Pakistan's criticized it as an unauthorized unilateral action, and the White House has said it didn't warn Pakistani officials out of fear of tipping off the targets. On Tuesday, the Pakistani government issued a statement rejecting allegations it was aware of bin Laden's presence in Pakistan and warning the U.S. against undertaking similar missions in the future. At a trilateral meeting with U.S. and Afghan envoys, Pakistani Foreign Minister Salman Bashir said Pakistan's trying to move on from the fallout over bin Laden's presence.
What we are trying to do here is to look to the future. Obama, this issue of the Osama bin Laden, it's history. And I think we do not want to keep ourselves mired in the past.
President Obama will be in New York on Thursday to deliver a speech at Ground Zero. Former President George W. Bush has declined an invitation to appear with Obama at the ceremony. We'll have more on bin Laden's death after headlines. The United Nations claims nearly 40,000 people have fled fighting in Libya's western mountain region over the last month. A UN spokesperson said some 8,000 people, mostly women and children, crossed the Libya-Tunisia border last weekend alone. The UN's High Commissioner for Refugees says the situation for those seeking to flee Libya is rapidly deteriorating as the port city of Misrata remains cut off from humanitarian access and the Tunisian border is beset with intense fighting. Simon Brooks of the International Committee of the Red Cross said aid groups need immediate access to Misrata.
We must have access as soon as possible. And, you know, the law of armed conflict is very clear about the access which civilian populations must have to humanitarian assistance in such circumstances. And the fact that that's not happening is of deep concern to us.
NATO, meanwhile, says it's been unable to clear all naval mines believed to have been laid by Muammar Gaddafi's forces off Misrata's port. The mines have prevented aid ships from reaching Misrata. NATO Vice Admiral Ronaldo Verri said his forces are trying to remove the mines. He also refused to apologize for this weekend's airstrike that killed Gaddafi's youngest son and 3 of his grandchildren.
NATO mine countermeasure vessels are establishing a clear corridor into the port. My clear aim is to ensure that humanitarian aid can move safely to port. I want to make it clear, and I repeat what was said, that we do not target individuals. So what NATO bombarded was surely an installation from where Gaddafi or his men were able to conduct or guide his forces towards attacking the civilian population.
The news in Libya comes as the chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court says he's found enough evidence to issue up to 5 warrants for crimes against humanity by Gaddafi's forces. Luis Moreno Ocampo is scheduled to brief the UN Security Council on his findings today. Palestinian factions Fatah and Hamas have gathered in Cairo, Egypt, to mark their landmark unity deal. The agreement lays the groundwork for an interim unity government before national elections next year. In Iraq, 9 people were killed and 27 wounded Tuesday when a car bombing struck southern Baghdad. Iraqi forces have gone on high alert in anticipation of revenge attacks for the death of Osama bin Laden. In Bahrain, 47 medical workers who treated pro-democracy protesters during the nation's unrest are being charged with crimes against the state. On Tuesday, Bahraini officials announced charges against 23 doctors and 24 nurses that include promoting efforts to bring down the government and harming the public by spreading false news. They'll be tried before a military court. Bahrain is a key U.S. ally in the Middle East, hosting the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet. Amnesty International reports North Korea is holding some 200,000 political prisoners in several massive camps where they're forced to work in near slave-like conditions. The rights group has published satellite images of 4 camps in 3 separate provinces. The images indicate a substantial growth in the scope of the camps since 2001. Interviews with former detainees have revealed allegations of torture and common public executions. Food's reportedly scarce at the camps, and several former prisoners have said people often eat rats or pick corn out of animal excrement to survive. The oil giant BP has agreed to pay $25 million to settle civil charges stemming from spills and corrosion at its massive pipeline system in Alaska. More than 5,000 barrels of oil were dumped at the North Slope in March 2006 when a BP pipeline exploded. BP was also found to have ignored a government order to require it to conduct expensive repairs on its network of 1,600 miles of pipeline. A Wyoming couple is accusing a national rent-to-own company of leasing them a computer that was used to spy on them in their home. In a federal lawsuit, Brian and Crystal Bird say the firm Aaron's used spying software to take remote photographs, monitor email, track Internet activity on the laptop computer they leased. The couple learned of the spying after a disagreement led an Aaron's manager to present them with a photograph of Brian Bird using the computer. Utah is facing a class-action lawsuit over a recently approved law similar to last year's anti-immigrant crackdown in Arizona. On Tuesday, the American Civil Liberties Union and the National Immigration Law Center filed a suit seeking to block the law before it takes effect next week. Under the measure, Utah law enforcement officers would be forced to check the immigration status of people stopped for violations. And a new international report finds rapidly increasing climate change could raise global sea levels up to 5 feet 3 inches by 2100. Temperatures in the Arctic are the warmest ever recorded, putting the region's ice caps and glaciers, as well as the Greenland ice sheet, at risk of melting. Such a thaw would threaten coasts from Bangladesh to Florida, low-lying Pacific islands, and cities from London to Shanghai. The report from the Oslo-based Arctic Monitoring and Assessment Program draws on the work of hundreds of experts. It also warns of a significantly higher sea level rise than previously anticipated. The last major report, issued in 2007, predicted sea levels would rise 18 and 59 centimeters by 2100. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.